Thank you, Todd. You remind me of myself a few years ago when I used to preach that sermon with all sincerity based on the teachings of the Bible. I changed my mind. I can't tell you my whole story. You are welcome to read some of it online or to find my book, Losing Faith in Faith, From Preacher to Atheist. I was an evangelical, born-again, Bible-believing preacher, soul winner, songwriter, missionary, evangelist. I changed my mind. God does not exist. I was walking in the mountains one day, a few years ago, and I saw a snake on the trail. And I stopped. But then as I got closer, I saw that it wasn't a snake after all. It was a stick. And as I walked by it, I thought, well, how silly. It's just, and so I was still a little cautious as I went around it. Why would my brain do that? Why would my brain think that stick was a snake? People like Pascal Boyer, who wrote a book called Religion Explained, and Daniel Dennett, the philosopher, who wrote a wonderful new book called Breaking the Spell, Religion as a Natural Phenomenon, and many other people using evolutionary psychology and the findings of evolution realized that there was an evolutionary advantage to that. Some of them call it, we have evolved from our ancestors to have this hyperactive agency detector. Those people, those of our ancestors who were more likely to see agency in nature were more likely to survive. You're better off making the mistake that a stick is a snake than the opposite mistake, right? So our brains look at nature, we look around and we see agency around us a lot, and that helped us to survive. Long before we understood electricity or the weather, our ancestors would look up at the thunder and the lightning and they would go, what is that? That hyperactive agency detector says, well, that must be some bird, animal, human creature thing up there doing that. And so they named it Zeus. Or if you live in the north, they named it Thor. And they thought this thing up there was communicating with them. And millions of people believed in Thor. In fact, you want evidence for the existence of Thor? Let me ask you a question. What day of the week is it today? Thursday. What does Thursday mean? The day of the acknowledgement of at least the belief of a god named Thor. How many people in this room now believe in the existence of the god Thor? Any of them? There's one in every crowd, Or Zeus. How many here believe in the existence of Zeus? Or Jupiter? Or Quetzalcoatl? What, is this a room full of skeptics? You don't believe in Thor and Zeus? What's wrong with you? Are you doubters? Do you doubt what millions of people sincerely believed for thousands of years? How many of you believe there was a desert religion that started in the Middle East, and they had a war god named Yahweh? This group of Jacob, the Israelites, they had a war god named Yahweh, which competed with the other gods. The God of the Bible. How many people in this room believe in the existence of Yahweh, the God of the Bible? I thought so. Okay. Well, the only difference between you and me is that I believe in one less God than you do. We are all atheists. In fact, the early Christians were called atheists by the Romans because they didn't believe in the right gods. In any argument, the burden of proof is on the shoulder of the person who makes the claim, not on the person who doubts it. If I claim that unicorns exist, and I'm convinced, and I can show you stories, and I can quote to you from the unicorn text that says unicorns exist, can Todd just fold his arms can I just fold my arms and ask Todd to disprove my belief in the existence of unicorns? No. The burden of proof is on me. Todd has not met anything close to a burden of proof tonight about the existence of a God. Many of the reasons for disbelieving the existence of a God. Number one, there is no evidence for this God. This microphone is not evidence for God. It's evidence for something else, but during my rebuttal time, I will show what is wrong, seriously wrong with Todd's argument about design. Number two, there's no coherent definition of a God. Ask any two believers, what is God, and they will come up with different answers about a God. So, in fact, some of the definitions of God, for example, if God is all-powerful and all-knowing and all-good, well, then that particular God cannot exist by logical contradiction. We all know the problem of evil. If a good God exists and He's all-powerful and all-knowing, then why does He allow natural evils to happen? Just walk into any children's hospital, and you know there is no God. People are praying desperately. They're putting their faith in the Bible. They're asking God to heal their children that they love so much. And these kids suffer and they die. And if there is a God, He is silent, He is uncaring. And if He has the ability to help, then He's also cruel. There is no agreement among God believers about the nature of a God or His moral principles. Take any social issue of the day, crucial moral issue, let's say birth control, abortion rights, death with dignity, gay marriage, you name it. You find devout, Bible-believing Christians falling on both sides of those moral issues. There is no agreement. Even Paul wrote in the Bible, God is not the author of confusion. Yet can you think of a single book that's caused more confusion than the Bible? The Bible has splintered and exploded into all these little competing groups. I'm not afraid of being attacked by Christians at all. Christians save their worst attacks for each other. Look at history. Look at how Christians have treated each other. Look how Protestants and Catholics have murdered and killed. Look how John Calvin brutally murdered Michael Servetus, a co-reformer believer, simply because he challenged his idea of the Trinity. And there are no good arguments for the existence of God. I will rebut some of the things that Todd said earlier. And more important, there's no need. Millions of good people in this world live happy, productive, moral, caring, loving lives without belief in a God. They contribute to charity. In fact, believers in God are faring much more poorly than non-believers when it comes to things like divorce, for example. Believers in God, born-again Christians, have a higher divorce rate than those who don't. If there's a God, don't you think His nature should be exhibited somewhere among you believers? Don't you think we should see some difference in your lives? You watch just as many X-rated movies as non-believers. You take just as many drugs for depression. Or in some states, like Utah, you take more drugs for depression. Your basic lives are no better. I used to preach that while becoming a Christian transforms you and makes you into a wonderful person. I have learned the opposite is true. Most people tend to be attracted, people with a low self-image. Even Jesus said, they who are whole don't need a physician, right? But only those who think they are sick. Well, churches attract people with low self-image who feel they are sinners, who feel they are no good, who think they need to be saved. And so, of course, if you're in that circle, you think, wow, isn't this wonderful? But if you look at the whole picture, belief in God has made no moral difference in the world. It has not. In fact, some people would argue it's made a negative moral influence. It was a belief in God that partially flew those planes into the World Trade Center. Combine all these lacks of evidence, lack of argument, lack of need, with the fact that there are good naturalistic explanations for the existence of a belief in God. Belief in God makes no sense at all. Isn't it obvious that there's no God? If there were, why are we having this debate? If there were a God, I mean, we don't debate gravity, do we? Let's get together and debate whether this is going to fall or not. We only debate things... You only debate things about which there is a lack of certainty. And it's obvious that since we're still debating the existence of God, His existence has not been proved, the burden of proof has not been met, and I am justified in saying God does not exist.